It's a strange world, isn't it? And in this strange world, there are even stranger people who do bizarre things, like making a statue depicting a man eating a baby, and then placing it in a town square. But that's the story of a day before. Today, we're diving into 3 articles I found on the Black Vault privately run archive full of government documents. It's one of my favorite sites to browse, because it gives you a look into what the US government is interested in. And sometimes these documents are like decades old. We'll look into 3 documents about strange sightings, one dating all the way back to 1948, giving us an insight in the concern of the US government about unidentified flying objects. But up first, what is the Black Vault? Governments tend to hide and redact things from their people. Sometimes this is justified and necessary. However, after a while, we can expect things to become public. In some cases, the government gives out these documents themselves, in others it can be requested. In the USA, you can request access to documents through a Freedom of Information Act request, also known as FOIA. And one organization that makes it its mission to do this is the Black Vault. The owner, John Greenwald Jr., who started requesting FOIA requests since he was 15, now has the largest privately owned online repository of declassified government documents, with almost 3.5 million documents at the time of this writing. It also holds other kinds of reports from national archives and records. Honestly, it's a great site to just browse and see what you can find. Or if you are interested in archives of the US government and other institutions. And it's all free. It doesn't necessarily focus on the strange and peculiar, but with all the strange scientific experiments and the UFO crazes of the mid-20th century, it does hold a lot of strange documents. It also has a paranormal tab, but it's specified that it's there because of the popular demand from the visitors of the site, and not so much because the owner wants to put an emphasis on it. Every article starts with a small description of the documents and where they came from. Sometimes it gives a little history about the person or objects it is about, or tries to give an explanation. In general, it's very objective, while giving the reader all the information about the documents. Today, I wanted to look into 3 cases that are on the website that have to do with our strange world. More specifically, the strange things one might encounter. UFO sightings are nothing new. This document shows the earlier interest of the US government into strange flying objects. The interesting thing about this document is that it was supposed to be destroyed in 1950, but some copies remained. So while reading it and seeing the stamps top secret and classified, and all the way in the back it says this is supposed to be destroyed as of blah 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 this date, it's really like, it makes it even better to read as if you're reading a secret. The document itself is 32 pages long, but it has a lot of pictures, so don't you worry if you don't like reading that much. It starts with an analysis about unidentified flying objects and hypothesizes about the origins. Then it goes into some reported sightings and after it an explanation of aircrafts that it could be. So let's get into it. Appendix A introduces who has seen the flying objects, where and what they have seen. We learn that the data of the reports come from 210 incidents, from US weather personnel to experienced civilian flyers. The document makes it clear that they're all credible sources, and if they are not, that they have credible evidence. The descriptions of the object can be categorized into 3 categories. The first one, silver discs or balls, resembling a Horton wing type aircraft. The second, a cigar or pencil shaped object similar to a V2 type rocket. And the third, balls of fire of various colors and intensities. The document notes that category 1 and 2 can refer to the same kind of aircraft seen from different points of views. It then glosses over the fact that these objects can be native to the US, for example they could be weather balloons or test aircrafts. But the interesting part of this fragment comes after this. The The article discusses if these sightings can be of foreign origin, most likely of the USSR. The significance of the objects being from a USSR origin is clear when you see when this document was written. It was written in 1948, only 3 years after World War II ended and Europe was divided, quite literally, into pro-American countries, as this document calls them, and the USSR, better known as the Soviet Union. Well, in the Second World War, the US and the USSR would have an amicable relationship, given they had a common enemy. After the war, this changed into a rivalry that later shaped into the Cold War. In 1948, the Cold War had just barely started. During this time, the USSR was trying to play catch-up through their 5-year plans that involved economics, industrialization, and also technical advantage. So, therefore, also air travel. The document explains this really well and logically from the US government point of view. Reasons why the aircrafts can't be recognized might be because they are foreign. Why they act so differently from US aircrafts could be because the USSR had so much to catch up to. It would only be logical that they, 1. Vastly advanced their aircrafts in a small matter of time, but also made different choices from the American engineers. They even mention a German engineer who worked for the Nazis in World War II that now worked for the USSR and could develop aircrafts that go faster and long distances, comparing them to World War II German aircrafts. As for where the flying objects were spotted, they were most intense throughout the states bordering the Atlantic and Pacific coastlines, and the states of Ohio and Kentucky. This also fits into the USSR narrative, even though one would think that the USSR would fly over more dense industrial areas. It turns out they had already maps of those areas provided by the US government themselves from when they worked together during the war. So exploring for them more unknown territory would make more sense. The last point this chapter goes over is why the USSR would fly over the USA. It gives 3 possible explanations for this. 1. A scare tactic, mostly for US citizens and not so much the government. The second explanation could be that to test the US air defenses in case they wanted to do a full-on airstrike and see how fast they would respond to unidentified objects. And 3. To map out possible important areas, as discussed earlier. Appendix B is a photo I can't make out and couldn't find anywhere else online. According to the title, it shows a map of the apparent sightings, so I guess it's just a map of the USA and then all the spots where there was a sighting similar to this one from 2020. Appendix C. This chapter discusses different sightings, all reported by credible sources or less credible sources but with credible proof. A lot of witnesses are pilots employed by the governments or scientists or something in that realm, but also amateur astronomers and just civilians are named. Some even have pictures that I can't make out. So I went on a little search on the internet for better pictures. I found out that these photographs are these photographs, and also that the name redacted in the file is most likely William Rhodes, who was an amateur astronomer. He also told his story to the press. In this article, I think. I couldn't really find the article. I don't know if it's supposed to be this article that he told his story to, but his name isn't mentioned. Then also on July 10th, Mr. Woodruff saw a circular object flying parallel to the Earth's surface and leaving a trail. 2 other people saw these trails, and these photographs support their sightings, if only these photographs had survived the passing of time. However, luckily, I found some better quality ones. Then we also have a few fun sketches, very beautiful, true art. But honestly, a lot of these sightings are more of the same. For me, it gets interesting when we come to a few explanations of the sightings that were debunked, or the origin of the objects were found, rather. After investigations, by the headquarters of the Air Material Command. They dismissed about 9% of incidents because they found out the origin was either from natural causes or, in Captain Henry Glover's case, it turned out to be a balloon carrying cosmic ray equipment, whatever that means. In a few cases, the object seen was determined to be Venus, which apparently Venus is confused a lot by a flying object, which is a bit strange. Also, it's brought up that in most cases, sounds or thrills are not normally associated with these sightings, which is kind of a strange thing in my opinion. You would think an aircraft would leave some kind of sounds or thrills behind. The objects sighted vary a lot in size, and they appear to be motionless or supersonic fast. And that brings us to the last appendix. This appendix has a lot of low quality pictures. It is a very fun chapter. Here they highlight aircrafts that would alarm US citizens into making a report about a strange flying object, and they are categorized by country. And I love a good categorization. So I'm not gonna bore you all with like the technical shit because who cares about that, but I will show you a few pictures and you can just read if you're interested in US aircrafts or like these post-World War II aircrafts. You can read it in the sources below. I've linked the whole document. So up first, give it a hand. We have the Horten from Germany. Look at it. It's an aircraft. Yay. Then second, from Britain, the Armstrong Whitbird, looking fly as hell. Yay! And last, from the home front, from the US of A, the Chance Ford XF5U1. They're always so romantic, those Americans with their names. Which might be the ugliest aircraft I've ever seen. There are more like these beauties in the document that you can of course read for yourself, like I said in the sources. It's actually a really interesting read about the more scientific side of the UFOs and how the US government reacted to it in the earlier days, but also in the context of early days of the Cold War. So I definitely recommend this read if you want to know more about this or if you want to get a little bit more context. I went through it really fast. So let's go to the next chapter, shall we? So for the second chapter, I just wanted to show these cute pictures of a car I found on the site. I really like the color, and the cars of the 60s are just so cute. What's wrong? Now this is just a picture of a car, there's nothing else there. There's this other one in the series. The colors of the 16 photographs are just such a vibe. This one of some trees for some reason, and wait, there's a spot in this one. Let me see if I can. Kinda looks like a UFO. I don't know, it's not super clear. Okay, let's be serious for a bit. These pictures are known as the Paul Vida UFO photographs. The Black Vault credits them as found within the Goddard Space Flight Center Graphic and Publication Services Bronze Collection within the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA. So they don't have an online archive, so you have to physically go there. So unfortunately I couldn't find the pictures on their site, so I just have to believe the Black Vault on this. But it seems that there are more people crediting this site for the source of the photographs. There's not a lot of information about Paul Villa. Apparently he had telepathic contact with aliens since early childhood. But like I said, the details and the information is really sparse. There aren't really that much credible sources. I read somewhere on Reddit, yeah, I know, that's where I had to go for this, that Vida was a veteran fighting in World War II and he had a German bride that he brought back to America. There's also a book written about it by Villa and Wendell C. Stevens called UFO Contact from Coma Berenices, the Paul Vida story. Here they frame the stories as non-fictional. I did not buy this book. I did not think it was worth my money. But if you're interested in it, the book exists, so. And I also found a snippet of a newspaper article that interviewed Vida, where he claims to be an ordinary mechanic and to have seen UFOs on 5 different occasions in 5 years. Unfortunately, the snippet that I found did not include the name of the newspaper or the date, although it would be somewhere in the 60s, so I could not cross-reference it. In this article, Vida also claims that the aliens foresaw a volcano bursting in New Mexico, which it didn't, and that there would erupt a war between Russia and China in the next year, which also did not happen, so take that as you will. What is clear, however, is that Vida has a passion for photography. His favorite subjects to photographs are UFOs, as you can see in the series. Vida claimed that he was led to places by these telepathic messages where he would observe UFOs and be able to photograph it. This particular series was made near Peralta, New Mexico. He even claims it levitated his car. I'm not gonna say anything about the credibility about the photos. However, I want to leave you with this picture of either a very tiny UFO or a very big ant. Into the last story, and this one is really just for fun. On January 22nd, 2020, the Washington State Department of Transportation tweeted out this. Sasquatch spotted? I'm not superstitious, but just a little stitious. Have you noticed something strange on our Sherman Pass SR20 webcam before? If you look closely by the tree on the left, there looks to be something. Might be a Sasquatch? I'll leave it up to you. At least that's how I imagine they want it to be said. This strange creature was found on one of their live cameras. They raised, I guess, the obvious question of Sasquatch? This story is nice, short and sweet, just like the tweet. The Black Vault explains this by going back to the Wayback Machine to see that this silhouette was there as far back as June 2019, but you can even disprove it by just looking at the pictures taken. In the first picture, the road is empty, while in the second picture you can see the backlights of a car, meaning that some time has passed between the 2 photographs. But still, creature hasn't even made any movement. That's suspicious, and very unlikely if this was a living being. Nowadays, however, it is 100% disproven to be a Sasquatch. In February of 2020, just barely a month after the post was made, the Washington State Department of Transportation did reply to someone under the tweet questioning the proof by saying it was a simple cutout. My theory of where this tweet came from is that someone in the office just got bored, knew about it, and decided to attempt to go viral on Twitter. So yeah, that's just a little fun thing, but also something that can be found on the Black Vault. So that was 3 strange stories I found on the Black Vault, ranging from really interesting look into the US government to really just silly. So yeah, we live in a strange, vast, weird earthball, and I like to explore that. And thank you for exploring it with me. Do like and comment what you thought about it and which of these stories was your favorite. Do you want to see more of this? Do you know any weird, strange stories from this world that you'd like me to explore? I would love to hear about it. The next video, however, will be about Christmas because we are entering December. We are getting closer and closer to 2025, which kind of scares me. But we're not gonna think about that. Next video will be more history oriented. We will go back in the past and not look to the future. It will be very similar to my Halloween video, so if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe. I do love that winter is coming and it's getting colder. However, I have now entered my constant cold era. So yeah, I've drank about 3 cups of tea with honey in doing this voiceover, but that's alright. I'll survive, and I'll probably drink just keep drinking more tea for the next one. I do hope it's gonna be a bit longer, like 40 minutes, like the Halloween episode. Yes, Christmas, it must have a lot of history. It's an old holiday, but I don't know yet. I'll guess I'll find out. And yeah, thank you so much for sticking to the very, very end of this video, and goodbye.